Hey YouTubes, hey Reddits, whatever, wherever you come from. Yeah, if you're here, you probably already saw my first video about this, which basically introduced you to this nice animation mechanic I came up with. As you can see in front of me, this is a turning cross, without any mods, fully working in vanilla Minecraft. And in this video, I will explain you how this works, how I set it up, yeah, all that nice stuff you want to hear from me, yeah. So this, you might have already seen a little glimpse of it. This is basically the part that makes this thing back there work. As you can see, spawners, yeah. To understand how they actually appear, disappear, I'll first of all kind of explain mechanics of spawners themselves and stuff like that. And yeah, so let's just kind of get started with the basic term entity. You might want to skip this if you already know what it is. However, entity is something that doesn't align with the block grid of Minecraft, for example. This item. This can be anywhere, this other item. These are two entities. This also counts for arrows because they aren't in the block grid, or basically any mob. So I don't know, a bat would also be entity. But what this actually then relies on will be, yeah, you already saw it, falling sand. Because sand, as it falls, but only in this state, as it is falling, is an entity, because it doesn't align with the block grid. So, we learned sand when falling equals entity. Also, what we should know is that basically every entity can get changed into a spawner. Well, basically a spawner can spawn every single entity in the game, as far as I know. That means we can spawn sand entities. And with the help of another program I used, called MCEdit, we can create falling sand entity spawners, basically. Now, how I went along creating this little animation back there, I first of all built these frames here. As you can see, there are 6 of them, and frames are basically these little pictures which kind of go seamlessly from one to another. That means this picture appears, then this one disappears after that, and so on. Basically, you always see one picture, and yeah, that's actually basically what an animation is. Now, what I used is a filter for this program MCEdit, which is called StatueMaker. And I know some of you already have these ideas about StatueMaker. Now, what StatueMaker does is it takes a block in the region I selected, and it changes it to a falling sand entity spawner with basically the ID of this iron block. Could be any block, even logs face different directions, as you can see. Now, what as of right now, as far as I know, this StatueMaker is kind of broken because I think at least it has to do with the basic teleporting and coordinate thing, how the game basically handles coordinates. So basically, if you imagine I have a wonderful command block in my hand and place it somewhere, and I tell it to teleport me here. That means I would kind of enter something TP at P, and then these coordinates, minus 1423, 2, and 857, excuse me. So, but that's actually not where it would spawn me. In fact, it would spawn me half a block higher. That means I would spawn on 2.5, and then fall half a block below, half a block down. And what I think is that applies to the spawned entities. Now, what this means for us, and what this means for the filter itself, is that the falling sand entities that get spawned only live for a very short amount of time. That means they spawn and die basically after 2 ticks, game ticks, or I think redstone ticks, not sure. Yeah, and that's basically what it relies on, because if as it's actually planned, the sand entity spawns exactly over 1 block. That means basically just like that. It would basically get placed on it. It would be placed on this block. But when it gets spawned half a block higher, that means it would kind of get... Nah, well, I can't actually demonstrate it, but just imagine it would get spawned half a block higher and basically dies before it even reaches the bottom, the ground. Yeah. So what we create is a very short floating sand entity, or yeah, in our case, an iron block entity falling thingy. Yeah. Then that's what I basically did. I'm saying basically a lot of times, I just noticed. Yeah, that's what I did for all these frames. And then I already ended up with these. I lined them up behind each other. Now, to the timing part. You might now, now I will use a filter in MCEdit called something like change spawner properties filter. Now, what I did there is I needed a basic entire loop time, the time that it takes to go through all the different pictures, which in our case would be 2 ticks, at least I believe, 2 ticks per frame, which in total would be 12 ticks. That means I would enter 12 in the minimum and the maximum delay box. So it doesn't actually kind of be random. So it's always 12 and it's always constant. That's important for our case. Then the main difference between all these spawners is the individual starting delay, the momentary delay you can set in MCEdit itself with the filter, of course. And I did this for each individual frame. That means each individual spawner group. So I would have, in this case, if I would set 1 tick delay for this group here, for this first group here, I'd had to set it 2 ticks later with this group. That means it would be 3 ticks. Here it would be 5, 7, 9, 11. And then it would basically start from the beginning again. Because it would only take 2 ticks more until the entire, that means 12 ticks would have passed, and this spawner starts spawning again. And for the detection range, I used something ridiculous high, something like, I don't know, 300. So it would always spawn no matter what, because the problem is that it could get out of sync, and we don't want that. So then we would already end up with this, with a turning wheel, if we would stand next to it. Now there's one problem, or one thing you have to keep in mind, which is keep it in a chunk. Basically you have to have it in one chunk, and I have kind of shown it with these 1 block higher thingamidings. Now, as you can see, they are all in one chunk, and what that means is as soon as I fly off, just imagine I fly off, and chunks would unload. That means chunk per chunk would unload, and as soon as this chunk unloads, all of them unload at the same time, which is important because they would basically stay in the same timing. They would be saved in their momentary timing state. Let's say it like that. But if I had this spawner group out here and I would fly away, this part would get unloaded first, which would leave this group here still running without any without them here in sync. Okay, so this would basically break the animation. So keep that in mind in one chunk. Keep all the spawners in one chunk. So that's basically how it works. Yeah, there's one really huge problem with this thing, and if I have the power to really shout out to Mojang, that would be just awesome, because this has so much potential for map makers, for really adventure maps, everything. This is just amazing. However, there's just this one problem. If you look up at this entity count, which is marked as all, you can see kind of flickering between 30 and 20 something. That's basically the count of all those entities back there. But as soon as I fly off, and I'm doing this now, basically they will disappear after a while, because they're entities, just like sheep and pigs. They would disappear after a time. Now, I fly off, and look, keep your eye on this all. Wait, oh, I think it was too far. On this all, you can see it. See, just in this perfect moment. Come on. Oh, it's not working. Wow, that's actually kind of good. Oh, here. You can see it rises. Just rising. And that means that these entities don't despawn with a certain range. Well, this doesn't matter too much for this little part here, because it's only spawning about 20 every time. And therefore it really doesn't do too much impact. At least when you're only in this very short place for a short time. Why isn't this thing loading? Load. Yeah, but imagine I would do this with my windmill I built. And let me just go over there right now. Yeah, here we are. Imagine this would happen to this windmill. Because this here is basically spawning 200 and basically having 100 entities spawned every 2 ticks. Just imagine that. And then I would fly off. I don't do it because this would wreck my freaking computer. My laptop. This would really have impact, and it would just basically destroy it. It's really sad, actually, and I really hope it gets fixed. Yeah. Despawning despawning entities. Fix it. Yeah. Now, just for the sake of it, I want to show you the spawners, because you guys thought, yeah, well, they are mini spawners, but let's jump down here. Up. Here we go. One more, even more. Okay. Loading. Wonderful. Load. Sucker. Okay. You thought it actually has a huge impact. Well, I didn't experience a very big impact, to be honest. But with recording, it really does something. It might have to do with the basic transparency of the blocks themselves, but the particles and stuff don't have an impact. So when I'm standing out there, I usually get normal frame rate of how I usually get it, with 60 frames, 70 until maybe 100. And I don't have a really high-end PC. I have something like, I have a laptop with a graphics card, I think NVIDIA GT 510, something like that. I'm not too sure. Might have to look it up. Yeah. So I don't think that lag will be the biggest problem, because you won't build the biggest crazy things with it, because it's also really takes a lot of time. Yeah, but it's there. There's the concept, there's the idea, there's the possibilities, all these things. Now, for the question, what happens if I touch it? Well, let's just think back. What happens when you touch a falling sand entity? Nothing. And that's quite what happens here. So, well, of course you could change it. You could kind of create something that detects players as soon as they jump in there, and I might do a video about it, how to do something like that. But I think that would kind of end this video here. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you understood. And if you have questions, please ask them. Really. Because this has so much potential, it really should get out there. Yeah. Thanks for watching again. Bye.